Hello and welcome to the VMTV Football Pod. I'm Bernard O'Toole and I'm delighted to say that I'm joined this week by fellow presenters at Virgin Media Television Sport, Anne-Marie Keegan, and also Tommy Martin's joining us as well. Plenty to discuss this week. But Tommy, if I start with you and start with the breaking news inside the last couple of hours, Gareth Southgate has resigned as the England manager. Your initial thoughts on that?
I'm surprised it came so quick, Bernard. Yeah, I thought he was going to take a little bit of time about it, but like the body language, and understandably, you've just lost a major final, on Sunday night from him. But he looked like a beaten man, didn't he? He looked like he just looked like I've had enough of this. I don't need. I can't take any more of this. Between losing finals and the stick he's got, I mean. I know the English fans, I don't want to damn them all with the same, tar them all with the same brush. But I know there's a bit of an element there, but getting beer glasses thrown at you by your own fans at a major tournament, like that can't be nice.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, and as the tournament went on, there was an element of told you so and sticking it to them when they got to the final, and then losing again. He obviously knew that it was going to come to his door and he would be the man, that he didn't get the best out of the players. And I think how far he's taken them, how far he's taken the whole sort of English national sort of system, he's done so much. But I think the die was cast, judging by the mood, that coming from him after the match on Sunday night.
Yeah, he's released a statement as you would expect. It's a lengthy statement as well. He says, as a proud Englishman, it's been an honour of my life to play for England and also manage England. It has meant everything to me and it's one I've given my all to. He also went on to say he had the privilege of leading a remarkable bunch of players in 102 games. The squad we took to Germany was full of exciting young talent and they will win the trophy we all dreamed of. Anne-Marie, if you look at his legacy, I suppose, the World Cup that he had initially, they got to the semi-finals and we know what happened at the last two Euros finals. How would you kind of assess the job he's done?
I think it's hard to argue that he hasn't done a great job, Bernard, when you look at where English football was when he took over, and he wasn't particularly, he wasn't the favourite for the job, and he wasn't particularly popular with the fans when he took over. But in terms of changing mentality around major tournaments, in terms of navigating major tournaments, he has done a great job. It has to be pointed out that he also seems to get the rub of the green when it comes to decent draws and things like that for England, particularly in this Euros. But yeah, he's done a great job. They have changed their mentality when it comes to things like penalty shootouts. I think that was evident in this tournament. But as Tommy says, really, who can blame him when you look at the abuse he was getting earlier in the tournament? He was visibly emotional the other night, understandably so, but you just felt in his post-match interviews the tone was a little bit different to how it has been previously. So it's not a huge surprise to me, this news. It is a surprise that it's come so soon, but I think he's probably done the FA a big favour in doing that. I know they released a statement thanking him and saying that they aim to have a new manager confirmed as soon as possible, and no doubt they've been working in that regard about that in the background. But it brings us to another interesting discussion that Lee Carsley has been rumoured as a potential interim manager if things do drag on, which we're used to them doing in this country.
Tommy, what do you make of that? Because, of course, England's next game is in the Nations League. It's at the Aviva Stadium. It's in Dublin. It's against the Republic of Ireland. What next for England? And do you see a possibility that the man in the England dugout is the man who was for a long time the front runner and the hot favourite for the Ireland job, Lee Carsley, come September?
Yeah, that's obviously this interesting little angle on the thing for us from our point of view. Because I mean, when Stephen Kenny went and for 3 or 4, 5, I don't know however long part of the process that we just endured, it felt like Carsley was the man. It was going to be Carsley. So we had this whole sort of psychological preparation with ourselves to sort of wonder what Lee Carsley was going to bring to the job. And then that just fell on its arse, and we all know what happened there. To have him in the dugout at the Aviva in September, like that would be one of those bizarre little subplots, lots of interesting lines for, to be asked at press conferences and et cetera, et cetera. But I'd be very surprised. I wouldn't imagine he's a contender for the job in real terms. Maybe he should be, because arguably Southgate, I would have thought maybe they'd like the idea of the manager coming up through their own system of, within the FA. But I think there's a sense now from England that they now, like Southgate has sort of, the job he's done, like as Anne-Marie talks about changing the culture and all that sort of, like he was a very kind of, he was kind of like a PowerPoint sort of, business style manager. I think he probably did things by consensus, sat down and had like a really constructive meeting where we all take each other's views, and then we make some action points, and we come up and then we act, like a sort of guy, be really good running a sort of small to medium enterprise, like, and I think that brought them a long way for creating a good culture. But they're clearly, the feeling now, and I was like watching the BBC coverage right after the final whistle, and they were like, okay, thanks Gareth, but we need something more now. We need a bit of something, like, not necessarily box office, but a manager who's able to harness the sort of talent that they have, that everybody goes on about, in the right way. Like I was reading, there was a piece that Barney Ronay was writing in The Guardian about this yesterday or this morning. What they need to do now is just go and get Klopp. Go and do whatever they need to do to get Klopp. And can you imagine if the FA were able to get Jurgen Klopp in with that England team, with the players that they have, and because the feeling, again, go back to what the BBC pundits were saying, it was like, we need to be on the front foot. We need to be a team that is going into these games against major oppositions and going toe to toe, and not playing, like, if you look at like the stats, when it comes to England playing the big teams in these major finals, the reason they lose the games, and they are always fine margins, is because they can't keep the ball. They can't get the possession that the likes of, Croatia did in the World Cup, Italy in the final a couple of years ago, and Spain, obviously, the last night, that there's something in those games that they sort of end up on the back foot, and I don't know whether that comes back to people blame Southgate's mentality and the way he's setting the team up, that they were naturally that was their sort of way, that they only started playing when they went behind in this tournament as well. So I think the feeling seems to be that they want a manager who's going to take this England team and make them a front foot team, make them a team, and maybe dispense a bit with the Southgate sort of, the famous handbrake that every accused Southgate of having.
Yeah, Klopp for England, that certainly would be interesting. Anne-Marie, let's talk about the final itself, because of course Spain came out winners, and I don't think many would disagree that they were fully deserved winners. When you look at the list of teams they beat in this tournament, Croatia, Italy, Albania, Georgia, Germany, France, and then England. What a really impressive tournament. Yeah,
they really did it the hard way, didn't they? And to win all 7 games, it's not often in tournament football that necessarily the best team wins the tournament, or the most impressive team, the team that has played the best football. But I think Spain probably ticked all of those boxes. And even in the final, I know Tommy there was talking about the BBC coverage. I was also watching between BBC and ITV, and obviously very English centric, but I don't think anybody on either of those panels was arguing that England deserved anything from that game. Spain were brilliant, fantastic to watch. So many fantastic players in that team. Lamine Yamal obviously stood
sensational.
out. Yeah, fantastic as one of the young players of the tournament. But to beat Germany on their way, to beat France on their way, it's hard to argue against them as a record now, 4th time European champions.
And Tommy, quite the turnaround as well, considering this is a Spain side. Well, not all the younger players certainly weren't there, but a Spain side that at the last World Cup finished runners-up to Japan in their group and went out to Morocco in the round of 16.
Yeah, and like in one way, you could say it's like a victory for the Spanish football culture and what they do that we'd seen before. With the great team of 15 years ago that won the World Cup and the Euros. But in other ways, like, they did change a lot since that World Cup under De La Fuente. That they were more, like, that sort of trendy word, vertical, in the sense that, like, what happened in that last World Cup, it was like, it was almost like a kind of a cliche of Spain, what goes wrong with Spain at tournaments when they have like 99% possession and one shot or whatever, like, and Morocco just absolutely ground them down, just wore them out and picked them off. This Spain team, though, just had a bit more, even the goal, the winning goal the last day, it was maybe 2 passes straight through straight through the middle of England out to Cucurella, and a first-time cross in for Oyarzabal's winner. That was so much more direct than anything you'd normally see from a Spanish team, or when things are going a bit too sort of possession focused. So he definitely changed that, and having the two wingers then, that really that was a bit of a game changer, because suddenly they had this real wow factor on either side, and the fact that sort of that's where they got the better of England in the second, as the second half opened. The ball, Yamal got in behind Shaw, pulled the whole English defence, moved over. Walker was then caught, between a rock and a hard place, and Williams got in for the goal. And then there was a couple of chances, like, England just, like, Pickford pulled off a great save from Yamal. There was a couple of other chances that were similar, just because they had that great width and dynamism that those two boys brought. That was kind of sort of in keeping with the style that they played at. So, actually, while you look at the composition of the Spanish squad, it's a lot less starry than the La Roja, Barcelona, Real Madrid boys of, World Cup winners. Like, I think there's more Sociedad players than Real Madrid players, etc. They were almost even a bit more dynamic and more exciting than those teams in some ways. So, like, as Anne-Marie says, like, I think everybody has said it, like, worthy winners, and almost you kind of go like, thank God for them in this tournament, really, like, in terms of the teams that reached that level.
Anne-Marie, you touched on it there. Let's talk about Lamine Yamal. He played in every one of the 7 games, tournaments, youngest ever player, 16 years and 338 days, youngest ever goal scorer against France. He only turned 17 before the final, and to make everybody feel a little bit older, he was born in 2007. Just sensational.
Oh, I saw somebody saying he was 12 years old when COVID happened. So, yeah, that definitely made me feel old. But no, he's fantastic. That goal against France, I think even when you were watching it, you were witnessing, like, a moment, really. Brilliant in the final again. Obviously, he set up the goal for Nico Williams. So, yeah, like, just an absolute standout performer. Never mind young player of the tournament. He could have been in with a shout for player of the tournament. And just going back to Spain, obviously those two wingers on either side, they give them so much, but they also did it missing Rodri in the second half against England, and Pedri as well, who got injured earlier in the tournament. So, as Tommy said, they don't have, maybe the standout names of, or Rodri aside, maybe the likes of Iniesta, Xabi Alonso that they used to have, but just seem to be a brilliant unit, and I suppose that's testament to Luis de la Fuente, who's come up from the underage system with them. He has them working so well.
Another player you touched on there, and we can't let it pass. If we're talking about Spain, we have to talk about Rodri. There's no coincidence that the guy who's been front and centre in Manchester City's success over the past couple of years has been front and centre in Spain winning the Euros.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant, isn't he? I mean, I thought you were going to come at me with that stat that he hasn't lost a game, but I don't think it's true anymore. I saw a lot of people say that in the Euros when Spain went on their unbeaten run, that it's now however many days since Rodri's lost a game, but he did lose the FA Cup final. Forget, but no,
it's only Eric Ten Hag who can. Eric Ten Hag
who can beat him.
Detonates Rodri.
Absolutely sensational, though, Rodri, Tommy.
Yeah, there was actually I was talking there about the Morocco game and in the last World Cup, but there was a great little quote after the Georgia game. Do you remember the Georgia, the last 16 when they went behind? And you kind of thought, like, oh, is this going to happen to Spain again? That they're going to look amazing and keep the ball, have 999 passes and get picked off. And there was a quote from Rodri. That he sort of at some stage of the game physically basically said to everybody, like, kept the ball, put his foot in the ball, and just told everybody to calm down and just keep playing and keep doing our thing. And they just methodically sort of picked Georgia apart. But that, I think De La Fuente called him like a computer. I think he's sort of probably ways that, like, it's not immediately obvious. Like, his stats are really good. His passing completion was something like 94% for the whole tournament and all that. But it wasn't. He only 2 shots in the tournament. I think maybe 1 goal, 2 shots. I think his other sort of defensive stuff was kind of comparable with sort of Declan Rice, his peers in that position. But it's just his ability. Like, I think what De La Fuente meant by a computer is that he sort of understands all the stages of the game, when to speed it up, when to slow it down, when to dig in, when to even the Harry Kane one just before halftime the other day. Who was it that actually ended up injuring himself in the final? who was it there just getting in there with the block? It was Rodri. Like, so just a phenomenal footballer. I don't think very few nations have somebody with that sort of overall understanding of the game.
Will he be in contention for the Ballon d'Or, Tommy?
I'd say so. Well, I wonder when they vote for these things, they do tend to go. Well, they do tend to just give it to Messi, don't they? I don't know. Do they tend to go for somebody with a bit more? They tend to go for more attacking players, don't they? Stats that show goals and assists, and so I think he might be a sort of one for the purists if he gets it. But he'd be a worthy winner.
Yeah, and let's talk about a previous Ballon d'Or winner, Ronaldo. He had Heimir, quite the interesting European Championship campaign.
Yeah, he certainly did. It's not often that, you know, a player doesn't score a goal or do too much, I suppose, in the tournament, but he's still Portugal's main man and still took much of the focus of the tournament. There was a lot made of his tears, whether that's, you know, an egotistical thing or a general upset of carrying the whole team on your back and being genuinely upset for the country. I mean, who knows with Ronaldo, but he's come in for a lot of criticism for his performances, the fact that he played so much in the tournament when, you know, the third group stage game when, you know, Portugal were already through, and did he demand to play that game? I mean, who knows? But yeah, it's just I don't feel I'm worthy to criticise Ronaldo at all. What a fantastic player.
I did enjoy your article, Tommy, a couple of weeks back. Has he gone back to COD? Where do you stand on Cristiano Ronaldo?
Well, obviously, I also am really unworthy to criticise. Heimir a much better footballer than I am, so no doubt about that. I just feel about the Ronaldo thing, I feel like a little bit, I think it's a little bit tragic that it's just on a human level that he has achieved so much, and I know everybody says this is what makes him a great player, that he's raging against the dying of the light and all this, and he wants to keep going. That's why he's up there, because he has that drive and it means so much, and that's why he was able to push himself to those levels. And even at 39, he still wants to be up there. But I'm just a little bit like, what more can you do? Like, what hole are you trying to fill at this stage? Like, he has achieved, you know, other than winning the World Cup with Portugal, which, you know, I mean, I hope he doesn't stay on. But I think the vibe seems to be that he might want to stay on for the World Cup. He's won how many Ballon d'Ors? I don't know. Is it 6, 7, whatever?
Yeah.
He's won five Champions Leagues? You know, so many, and then individual goal scoring records that are just they're inconceivable. 10 or 15 years ago, before he came on the scene along with Messi, inconceivable stuff. He's redefined the game. He's redefined, you know, the idea of an individual within the game in terms of his profile, you know, as a business person or a celebrity or a superstar. He's probably the most famous person in the world, maybe, apart from, you know, Taylor Swift. I don't know. You know, how much, why, like, so when I look at him in tears, and I get that. I'm not saying you can't be upset, but I just kind of wonder, like, when is it going to be enough? What's going to be enough? When is he kind of going to go, you know what, I've had a good run. Yeah. I'm going to go, not he's going to go to take up fishing and, you know, go for pipe and slippers sort of stuff. But I just don't know. Sometimes I think, like what's the hole that he's trying to fill, and has everything he's achieved in the game not made him kind of go have a little bit of sense of, I've done not too bad here. I've had a good run. Maybe I take a little step back here now. Maybe I don't have to be the main man. Maybe I'm, you know, coming on. Maybe I'm saying to Martinez, I can come on and get you a goal, but, you know, let Bruno Fernandes or whoever be the leader of this team now, or whatever. You know, that's, again, some people will say, yeah, but that's not, that's the reason he's a great player, because he doesn't have that sort of mentality. But Jesus, I mean, his performances at this Euros were, you know, I mean, he was a pale shadow of what he once was.
Yeah, I think that was the kind of sad thing to see, wasn't it? But like, as Tommy said, I can't see him fishing.
Ronaldo fishing. No,
he's gonna have to be the best at that. But yeah, as Tommy said, I don't know where it ends. Whether there's a role for him at the World Cup as a substitute if that's something he could tolerate with
Cristiano
his own
Ronaldo a
ego.
substitute, yeah.
But certainly when you listen to Roberto Martinez and his press conferences, everything he was saying after matches, should Ronaldo have played, he's the leader of this team, he motivates everybody, he's so important to us. So I don't know if he's drinking the Ronaldo Kool-Aid or if he believes.
Do you buy that? Like, do you think that's a genuine? Do you think it's yes? The value he brings to the team exceeds maybe what he's actually doing to the sort of layperson, or is it that Martinez is just going, this guy's too big for? I don't have the kind of the status here to drop him.
Yeah, I suppose it's something we'll never know, not being in camp, but it's also something we'll never know, that what would have happened if he had a dropped Ronaldo, if he had gone with somebody more dynamic. There, like when you look at Portugal's bench, João Felix didn't get too many minutes at all. Diogo Jota, he barely played. And when you look at the bench, they were stacked with these kind of dynamic performers, and Ronaldo just seems so static up there that it would have been interesting to see what would have happened had he not played in a game, or had he not played 90 minutes of every game.
Or even if he had taken them off, like you were saying there, Tom, I think if Ronaldo's still taking those chances, then you're thinking, okay, he's not going to offer you a whole lot apart from the killer goal or the killer time goal, and that's not happening. And you have someone like Jota who scores really important goals for Portugal on the bench and he's not getting on, then that's the big decision. But I don't know who makes that decision. He's not going to make it.
The Harry Kane one with England as well, I think was maybe because I mean Southgate did, as the tournament went on, start to bring him off, but I think that. There was some talk that Bellingham was sort of gesturing, Katie McCabe style at the English bench at Southgate to say, got to make a change here shortly before Kane was taken off in the final. So I don't know whether, don't get me wrong, I'm sure Kane as well in the English setup is hugely respected and is a leader, etc., etc. But people aren't stupid either. He didn't look right. He didn't look fit. Didn't look mobile. There was just no the opposition centre halves just had the. They had their pipe and slippers out again, or they did such easy games against them because there was just no movement from him. And then Watkins comes on, and anyway, that's obviously digression. But it's just that same thing of when players are too big to sort of challenge. I mean, a stronger manager in both of those cases might have gone, sorry, you're not right. You're not, although your aura and your achievements are massive, I got to make a decision based on form and who's doing it now. So. But anyway, look, that's why it's such a hard job, I guess. Yeah.
Before we park the Euros chat and move on to loads of Ireland stuff to discuss, I want to talk, Amory, about some of the smaller nations, because I suppose another hallmark of this Euros, and in particular to highlight Georgia and Slovenia, two sides who came out of really tricky groups and went all the way to the round of 16. Yeah,
certainly, as you say, Bernard, a real hallmark of this Euros. I'd be an advocate for the expanded Euros myself. I think the more games of football you can get in, the better. Why not? Yes, God, Slovakia as well against England, so close. But for that Jude Bellingham overhead kick, we could be having the Gareth Southgate conversation 2 weeks ago. But certainly, even I know they're not necessarily a small nation for Turkey. Arda Güler really stood out to me. Kvaratskhelia for Georgia, some brilliant players, and just how Georgia. They kind of ripped up the playbook in terms of being a smaller nation, taking on a big nation on a big stage like that. They really went for it, and great to watch, impressive to see, and hats off to them.
They were great. Also, just to mention Slovenia as well, they came third in that group behind England and Denmark, and it was only penalties that saw Portugal get past them.
Yeah, we've discussed Portugal's performance. So I'm not sure how much credit should be given to Slovenia there, but yeah, certainly tough group to come out of that. Yeah, great stuff. And it can, we're one of the smaller nations ourselves. So, gives us a bit of hope as well.
I was just going to say that, Tommy, smaller nations doing well at the Euros, does it give us hope?
Well, it should do. I mean, look, as Anne-Marie says, the 24 team Euros is made for the likes of smaller nations. And if you look at, Slovenia, Slovakia, Georgia, and Albania in terms of small. Now you could also include Denmark and Croatia in that, but they're small nations who have made themselves into sort of established football nations by how well they've sort of run their business, if you like. Those other smaller nations that we would typically kind of go, they're not too far off from us, a lot of times in our lifetimes we've been well above them in terms of status. like there's absolutely no reason that we can't aspire to be competitive. And I think, as Anne-Marie says, the thing to do when you get there. Sorry, the other small nation didn't mention was Scotland, who again we'd always tag ourselves or kind of judge ourselves on and where they are. You know, who did really well under Steve Clark, been really good over the last few years, very well organised. He has them, you know, knowing their jobs, etc., etc. But they came away from the Euros with huge regrets because, sort of conversely to what Anne-Marie was saying about Georgia going and having a go and having no regrets. Scotland was just the sense that they turned up. It was actually like the sort of, you know, if you asked an AI thing to generate a Scotland major tournament, it would be this. It would be the big flop, the sort of revival to get the hopes up, and then the ultimate, you know, flop in the end, and regrets and tears and etc. etc. So, you know, I suppose the lesson is that we're not that we shouldn't think we're that far away. What you do probably needs to be well organised, have a good sort of tight togetherness in the squad. You probably need one or two Champions League level players. Like if you look at Slovenia, which likes of Jan Oblak in there, and Benjamin Sesko, maybe, although he wasn't maybe one of their star men. Slovakia had Lobotka in there, and Skriniar, the centre half as well. Georgia, Kvaratskhelia. So, you know, maybe one or two sort of star players that know their onions when it comes to the top level, a good sort of cohort of experienced, established players playing at a decent level, and then get well organised and go and have a go. And, you know, we should definitely be aspiring to get to that level at least. And it wasn't that long ago that we were. It was only Eurotech 2016 that we made the knockout stages as well. So it's not all
like
doom
a long
and gloom.
time ago.
Yeah, it does. Now, look, that brings us nicely
Well,
on.
you mean Laval was what? 9?
Don't go there.
Don't tell us. No. Well, one man hoping to get us to the Euros is the new Republic of Ireland manager, Heimir Hallgrímsson, and we can now hear from him.
I've been reading that you've a couple of plans regarding the League of Ireland to maybe get the players in January. Could you just talk to us a bit about that and where the idea comes from and what you see the benefits being?
No, we've done that in Iceland for a long time. And then I did that as well, and they have been doing it in Jamaica as well. Reason being is that just number one, to promote the league, the players in the league, giving them a chance to show and give them a platform that probably they need. Second is that it is always one or two players that will impress in camps like this, and if you can have one or two players that can then from then on be in the national team, it's worth it. So that is kind of what we have been, I've been discussing what we have done in the past. If it's possible here in Ireland, we just have to wait and see. But I think it's something, looking at the leagues, I think the League of Ireland here is similar to the League of Iceland, and similar, a little bit better than the league in Jamaica, but always, these camps will always produce one or two players.
Have you made much progress on your background team? I know you said you'd spoken to John O'Shea previously. He's going to take some time to think about things. Is there anybody else in the mix that you've spoken to in the last few days, or any of the players? Have you caught up with them?
No, not the players. We're gonna finish with the staff. So after this, I'm gonna drive down to Waterford, if I have it correct, and sit down with John and have a coffee and a talk, and let's hope that he will be positive staying on.
You need to do some convincing.
I don't know. I'm just going to meet the guy and get to know him. And like I've said before, I've heard so good things about him, and I hope he will be with us.
At the press conference last week, a lot of the fans were annoyed that we didn't get to know you very well. A lot of it was overshadowed by talk of the FAI. Is there something you'd like to say to the fans and message them, or how would they get to know you?
No, I think slowly. I will be around, so I'm pretty open person. So. Accessible, and probably you can Google everything you want to know today. So no, pretty open person, and I will do my best to first thing to fit into the culture here. Secondly, to do my best for the Irish football, whether it's a camp like this, and I've been in coaching education for a long time. Been coaching at all levels, maybe different from other national team coaches. I've coached under 10s for a lot of years. I've coached women, I've coached amateurs, I've coached at the World Cup, so I have a broad experience in coaching. So I just like to share.
The thoughts of the new Republic of Ireland manager Heimir Hallgrímsson there. Anne-Marie, you've interviewed him twice now inside the last week. Your sense of what kind of guy he is?
Yeah, he must be sick this
Yeah,
last
not at all.
No, he's pretty cool, I have to say. When a new Ireland manager turns up to his first press conference in a pair of shades and Adidas Originals, he's got my seal of approval. But yeah, look, he's very honest. He admitted he doesn't know a lot about the players. He admitted he still has to finalise his backroom staff. He's lots of work to do, and I think he knows that. Hopefully he found his way to Waterford, because he didn't seem to know exactly where he was going. But I think he realises it's going to be very important for him and very helpful if he can get John O'Shea on board, somebody who has that link already with the players, who's obviously been interim manager for 4 games now, from March till the June window. I think he's going to be crucial for Heimir if he can get John on board. And as I say, just be that link. He's somebody that the players trust, John O'Shea. He's somebody the players are really advocating to get the job. So, look, at least Heimir is aware that that's going to be crucial to him. He said as much to me.
He we'll talk about his CV and what he's going to bring to the job in a couple of moments. But you've said about his honesty there, and he has been quite honest. Like, even in that interview earlier on this week, saying I'm heading off to Waterford now to interview John O'Shea. He's also made a couple of references to not knowing the players. Like, he's pretty forthcoming with where exactly he is.
He is, which is great as an interviewer. One thing I meant to say to you there, he kind of, when we were speaking about the John O'Shea, he may have let slip. He may or may not have let slip something. He said to me, his exact wording was, whoever the board thinks will take over in the future should be with the team prior to that. So I would like to have him. Now, whether or not there's a succession plan in place or whether that was kind of lost in translation, I'm not sure. But yeah, sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, but he sounds quite, well, I'm just saying how open he is about everything.
Yeah, and he may have, I suppose, landed the FAI in a bit of hot water there. The unveiling of Heimir was kind of that the FAI made speeches before, the chief executive and Mark Canham, the director of football, whose job it was to secure the new manager, made statements, very much giving the impression that this had been a long campaign of trying to get their number one target. Heimir was always their number one target. They were always in control of the process, and it's a process that has been ongoing for a number of months now. 8 months it was since Stephen Kenny resigned, but Heimir kind of threw a bit of doubt in a lot of that. In plenty of his first interviews, he said it was all very rushed. He hadn't got much time to talk to them about backroom staff and things like that. So we're not really sure.
Which is completely at odds, yeah.
It is completely at odds. We're not really sure, where the truth lies. But I did ask him about that for his press conference. Subsequent to that question, I asked him, was he surprised that it was kind of hijacked by questions for the FAI about the process. He said he was a little surprised, and then he also said that he wasn't aware of the complications with the process, and everything was so rushed that there wouldn't have been time to tell him anyway.
Tommy, it obviously was a shock appointment when we all heard it last week. I think some people, maybe some Ireland fans, were Googling who this guy was. He did a great job, obviously, with Iceland at the last Euros. They beat England, and they had a great campaign back in 2016. What do you make of, I suppose, the result of this long search for a manager and what we've arrived at last week?
I'm pretty positive about the appointment, if sharing and sort of agreeing with Anne-Marie's interpretation of some of the stuff he said about what it says about the notorious process that we've been through. Like, as Anne-Marie says, the fact that it sounds like a scene from House of the Dragon. He has to ride down to Waterford to meet John O'Shea to get him to bow the knee and join him in his battle. Like, if this guy was 6 months ago, right, Heimir, you're our man. Start thinking about your backroom team. How come he's telling Anne-Marie yesterday that he's still, sort of trying to put together, and actually the John O'Shea one is unbelievable, because when Mark Canham did the interview admitting back in April that we didn't have anybody for the job for the June friendlies, he said, hopefully John O'Shea will do it. And then now we're here in July, we're still saying, and then once again we're saying, hopefully John O'Shea will do the number 2 job. Like, I don't know, is it silly bugger stuff as in it's John O'Shea's always going to be doing it, and we're the smoke and mirrors. Or anyway, it just adds to the whole sense of I totally agree with Emery's sense that like I wouldn't be too sure about the whole idea that fine, it was a good process. We got there, got our man. Like I'm not saying he wasn't a name on a list somewhere back in January, February. If we can't get Lee, and if we can't get Willie Sandell, if we can't get this guy, he wasn't. I'm not saying he wasn't on that list, but to say he was sort of target number one is probably unlikely. But having said that, yes, it's a bit of a reality check as to where we are in the national or in the global football standing. And I think people who are kind of going like, "Who the hell is this guy?" We should be doing better than this. Want to wake up and just understand where Ireland are. Right, we can't afford to go and get the Trapattoni's to do it that sort of way. We have a very sort of what we say shallow pool of indigenous coaches because of various reasons. England have the same problem, by the way, that we don't seem to produce a steady stream of quality coaches. Now, hopefully that's changing now with there's good ones, obviously, that we know about in the League of Ireland. Maybe John O'Shea will go on to be somebody like that. But there isn't a big stock there of our own coaches that would see the job as being, that have managed at the top level and would see the job as something that they'd want to do. So where do we go then? We're into the international marketplace with a budget that's very modest, and we get a guy who's involved in a team that reached brought a tiny nation to a World Cup and the knockout stages of a European Championship. Not saying he's a world-beating manager that's going to, do amazing things with us, but he's certainly well qualified. He's come across pretty well, as Emery says, open, honest, a bit of honesty in Irish football, and a bit of straight talk, and that'll people will like that. People will respond to that if he is that kind of person.
One thing I think a lot of people will like as well, Tommy, is the fact that he's planning to live here. I was chatting to him off camera there about his house hunt at the minute. He said it's important to immerse himself. He said he did the same when he was manager of Jamaica. It's important to immerse yourself in the culture and the day-to-day life of the country you're managing. I know that's certainly, judging by social media, that seems to have struck a chord with a lot of Ireland fans. They're happy to hear that he's going to be here. We've already seen him at a couple of League of Ireland clubs. He was at the Shells Europa Conference League last week. He was at Bows and Sligo on Friday night as well. So he certainly seems like, he's willing to get stuck in, and we've already heard of his plans as well for the League of Ireland. That seems to be something he's keen to get involved in, helping the league and bringing players through to the national team when he can.
Let's actually expand on that, because that was one of the points that he touched on there when he's chatting to you, that he wants to have this League of Ireland player camp in January to have a look at players, because you've also interviewed Stephen Bradley this week. And we're going to hear from Stephen Bradley on his take on this potential League of Ireland camp for the national team manager to have a look at in January. Here's the thoughts of the Shamrock Rovers manager on that.
I don't understand the whole January concept. If the players are good enough, they should be brought into any squad at any point in the year. So having a camp in January when our players are out of season doesn't make sense for me.
Is it something that you'd be willing to support if there were a couple of young players you wanted to have a look at?
Of course, we're always looking to push our players in our league because we know how good they are. We see them every week, and it shouldn't take for players to move outside of Ireland to play for their country. We've shown that a number of times here, that if the players are good enough, they should be called up and played, and it shouldn't just be a January get-together as a token gesture. It should be if the players are good enough, they get called in.
So Stephen Bradley clearly not happy on this, Anne-Marie.
Yeah, he doesn't sound he's the biggest advocate for the January camp, but I can see his side of things also. January is a strange time for the League of Ireland. That's when the players are out of season. Most of them are on holidays in January. But you can see where Heimir Hallgrímsson is coming from with this. He said it's worked for him previously. So I think it was just an idea he's floated out there with the FAI. We'll see what comes of it. If there are a couple of young players in the league that are, pushing for the national team, why not get them in there with the manager? It's something the women's team used to do until recently. They used to have these home-based sessions where Eileen Gleeson would take players from the league who were either already international players, 2 or 3, or who were on the fringes or in the underage teams. So, we've seen recently there's plenty of the league is very well represented in the Ireland under-21. So I mean, why not try it?
What do you make of it, Tommy?
I would sort of say that sometimes, in the League of Ireland, we can be kind of, there can be kind of a almost an instinctive reaction to sort of say, what's this fella coming in thinking he can, come up with these ideas and tell us how to do things? No, that doesn't work. And Bradley does have a good point. January is out of season. It's the mid-season break in Scandinavian football, so it's traditional. Then you see a lot of the countries do have friendlies in that sort of window because they have their 3-month mid-season break there. Problem with that with the Irish thing is that they're literally they're sort of starting pre-season, and you can see the cogs in Stephen Bradley's mind going, okay, I got my guys in, I'm coming up with programs for them, so because I want to get their fitness levels to a level that they'll be able to compete, but also manage their loads so that they're still fresh in July, August when the European qualifiers are on. And then you're going to throw this into the mix, and he's just he doesn't want anything to do with that. So what I say is I totally see Bradley's point of view, but I think it's encouraging that Heimir Hallgrímsson wants to engage with the league. I hope it's not a token sort of thing. I don't think it is, because as Anne-Marie says, he's got benefited from it in his previous jobs. Will it have value? That's another discussion. Are there players in the League of Ireland who can be good enough, show up to be good enough to be included in the squad? That's a separate discussion. Might it be good for them anyway to be exposed to that, to international coaching and international camps, etc. It's maybe finding it. Maybe there's another window somewhere else in the season. Maybe the season when the players are a bit more up to speed in the summer mid-season break. I don't know, but again, it's a positive thing, and I hope his that sort of attitude. I hope there's an openness to kind of go, okay, let's work with this guy if he wants to kind of do things a bit differently and engage. Again, maybe he's just saying the right things to please his new bosses about engaging with different levels of the Irish. He's at a summer camp yesterday, and he's all singing, all dancing, but maybe genuinely is wanting to sort of tap into the culture, a bit deeper into the culture of the game in the country.
Let's keep the League of Ireland conversation going, because it's a big night for Shamrock Rovers. I am aware some people are probably watching this after this game has taken place, but as of right now, we're a couple of hours ahead or away from a big night for Shamrock Rovers. They're playing Víkingur Reykjavik in the first qualifying round of the Champions League. Goalless from the first leg. Big night ahead at Tallaght Stadium for Rovers. We can now hear from Stephen Bradley, but first, Dylan Watts.
You've had a chance to have a bit of a look now at the opposition for tomorrow. Are there any kind of areas you think you can get at them, or what can you bring tomorrow that you couldn't do over an ice and on a plastic pitch?
Yeah, of course. Look, we know they're a good side from playing them last week. Lots of good players, dangerous attacking players, but obviously, I mean, if you look at the game over there, we had probably two of the best chances in the game, so hopefully we can create a few more tomorrow and hopefully take them.
Is that the key tomorrow night, you feel, just taking those big chances when they come your way?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe need to create a few more chances tomorrow night and hopefully stick a couple in the back of the night and hopefully get the win as well.
How positive is it to have the second leg at home and have that crowd behind you?
Yeah, brilliant. It's looking like a sellout, so it's going to be a fantastic atmosphere. And look, these are the nights in which you play football for, so everyone will be buzzing for it, and hopefully we can get a result, like I said.
What they brought to the game, we felt they would bring to the game, so we know that'll be the case again tomorrow, but we definitely feel we can bring more to the game in the attacking part tomorrow night. So, but we have to respect that they are a very good side going forward. Out of 5 that were missing last week, Lee Grace is back. It's a bit early for the others, so hopefully they could be back on Friday or next week.
How big of an advantage is it to have the second leg?
Yeah, it always helps when you can take a tie back home and you have your home support and the game's alive. That's always important. Hopefully tomorrow now we can get a really big crowd on Tallaght to help us push on and try and get the win. And the fact that it is close to a sellout or will be a sellout, you're a very difficult team to beat with a packed Tallaght Stadium. How important are the crowd tomorrow? They're so important, the crowd. We really need them in their numbers tomorrow. We need them to be vocal. We need to make it an uncomfortable place for Víkingur to come and play. And we've seen that European nights in Tallaght, when it's a sellout crowd, it's a special place, and hopefully tomorrow night can be a special night.
Rovers certainly will hope it is going to be a special night. It is a big game for them, Anne-Marie. They're quite off the pace in the league. They bowed out of the Champions League. They went into the Conference League, but out of the Champions League at this stage last season. This is obviously goalless. It's a big one for Rovers tonight.
Yeah, and they bowed out at the hands of Icelandic opposition as well in Breiðablik. But it's a big week for them. They've Bows in the Cup as well on Friday night. So, speaking to Dylan Watts, speaking to Stephen Bradley, you can tell they're confident about tomorrow night. I made the point to them there that they are a tough side to beat at home with that crowd behind them at Tala. And they seem to feel that if they turn up, they're certainly capable of getting the win. Stephen Bradley made a point to me that he feels his side have grown, that the first leg last week they went down to 10 men for the last 15 minutes. They were under immense pressure, but they've kind of got that know-how about them now in European ties, and the team have grown in the last few years. So yeah, they seem confident. I'd back them to get the job done at home.
They could really do, couldn't they, with a good European run this year? Yeah,
they could. Obviously the league hasn't quite gone the way they wanted to. I don't think they're ruling themselves out by any stretch, but 2 wins this week, like a win in Europe and a win against Bows on Friday night in the Cup, and it starts to look very different for Rovers, and they are. We've seen in previous seasons they're a side that are capable of putting together, a 7-game winning run in the league or the Cup in Europe, and things could start to look very different for them.
Yeah, they're only 13 points off the leader Shelbourne in the league with a game at hand, so it's not all doom and gloom. But in terms of big weeks, Tommy, a game against Bows, knockout football to come, Champions League football tonight. It's a big week for Rovers.
Yeah, it is. Look, I would imagine, I know Anne-Marie says they're not chucking the league, obviously, by any means, but like if we look at, a huge injury profile over the season so far, and maybe a squad with a lot of older players, you'd wonder whether the focus might be, right, if we can get the Cup run and if we can get Europe right, then maybe that is our focus for the remainder of the season. Like, just not to absolutely do not mistake the huge nature of this. And again, I understand people will be listening to this afterwards, so I hope it's a positive result for Rovers tonight if you're listening to this after the game. The fact that if you win this tie and you get into the next round of the Champions League qualifiers, it just makes it so much easier then to guarantee European football into the group stage, because you then need to only really win one more tie, because then you'll basically, whatever, even the worst happens after that, you'll fall down into the Conference League. And then it's easier because you're in the Champions path in the Conference League. You theoretically be playing against smaller nations. Compared to what happened last year, Rovers lost to Breiðablik. That was such a wounding defeat, because they went into the Europa League qualifiers then, and they faced Ferencváros, who were too powerful, just too big. Even looking at the Thursday games, and hopefully, Derry have a big challenge on board. Hopefully Shells can get the job done. Derry, if they get through, would face Copenhagen. Shells go through, they face Zurich. Clubs from bigger nations. It is a tough path to go through for them. For the champions, for the Irish League winners, this first round game is so massive, because it just makes your life, you've a real fighting chance then of getting group stage football. And we all know how important that is for the league in general, as well, obviously the club in particular, but for Irish football in general.
Anne-Marie, Tommy touched on Shells and Derry there, just to mention them and sort of expand a little bit more on them. So they're both up against Gibraltar sides later on this week in the Conference League. Shelbourne away from home but with a lead, Derry at home but with a deficit, so both with a bit of work to do.
I watched the Shells game last week at Talca Park. What an occasion. Werner back in Europe for the first time in 18 years. A 2-1 win for Shells, but you felt they'd more in the tank, they'd more to give. They could have gone for it a little bit more. I think they maybe sat back, but I just hope they don't live to regret that. They're going over to Gibraltar now to very different conditions. I think it's 35 degrees over there. Derry definitely struggled with that. The plastic pitch as well is a factor. I wouldn't say Derry are out of it either, though. Getting Bruno's Magpies.
What a name, by the way.
What a name. Again, Bruno's Magpies back to the Brownie Valley. I'd still think that Derry stand a chance going through. And listen, let's hope Shells do as well.
Yeah, it was just 2 set plays that undid Derry last week. So let's hope it's a good week all round for the League of Ireland sides in Europe. More to talk about, of course, because the Republic of Ireland women's team are in action this evening at Parc y Cuivre against France. We can now hear from captain Katie McCabe.
We've had, not the best of draws, but for us, we have that self-belief, and we, on our day, we can compete against anybody. We've shown good quality over the last few years, and we've showed even in the Nations League we can score goals, and we can play nice football, and it's about now stepping up that level, which we want to do, and preventing those maybe soft goals we've conceded, and making sure we're getting over the line. It's been a tight group the whole campaign. Even with the rest of the teams, it's only been kind of 1-2 goal deficits. So, as I said, when we got the goal on Friday, it does give us a positive belief going into tomorrow night.
Yeah, it certainly is a big game. Anne-Marie, is the final group game. France should be a great occasion at Páirc Uí Chaoimh, but this really is all about being seeded for the playoff, which we're already guaranteed to be in.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
When I guess the permutations, it always gets messy.
Get the abacus out. But we have already guaranteed a playoff due to that great performance in the Nations League where we topped the group and won all 6 games. Now the question is, will we be seeded for the playoff? So I'll try my best to explain it. We're up against Poland for the final seeded position. It's going to go down to goal difference more than likely. Unless Poland get a win tonight, we'd probably have to match that. But at the minute, on goal difference, Poland are on -12. We're on -8. So I know there was a bit of criticism for the maybe overzealous celebrations in that defeat to England on Friday, but every goal is really big for Ireland at the minute. So we face 2 playoffs. The first would be in October against a team from League C of the Nations League. Now, I don't want to put the mockers on us, but that should be no problem to us.
Okay.
If we win that, then a second playoff is in December. And if we are seeded, we will face an unseeded team. And just looking at the types of teams that will be in those playoffs, it's not guaranteed yet who's seeded, who's not, but the likes of Hungary, Turkey, Northern Ireland, Croatia, Ukraine, Azerbaijan. I think that Eileen Gleeson would certainly fancy her chances against all of those sides.
Yeah, it really would be remarkable. So essentially we're looking to keep this tight, or if we are to lose, to make sure that we kind of get ourselves a goal.
Yeah, I think draw would be absolutely brilliant. France are already through.
Okay.
They've guaranteed themselves a place at the Euros next year. So there is talk that Heimir Hallgrímsson might rest a few players. Could be a good thing for us. But listen, I think tonight is very much about the occasion as well. Down at Páirc Uí Chaoimh, it's the first time since 2012 that the Irish national team have played outside of Dublin. Obviously, Tala wasn't available tonight. Rovers are in European action, and I think the pitch is being relayed at the Aviva. So this has been in the works for quite a while now. So it should be a great occasion in Cork. An All-Ireland final and the women's national team in 1 week for Cork. Yeah,
and it should be great, Tommy. It's a real homecoming as well, isn't it, for the likes of Megan Connolly and also Denise O'Sullivan and the likes?
Yeah, no, it is a big occasion. Like, it's probably unfortunate timing. As Anne-Marie says, the week of an All-Ireland hurling final. Like, I'm sure that minds in Cork might be in different, in different place. But like, it's always good to bring the whole thing, bringing national teams around the country, and hopefully there's performance. I know France have obviously got at this stage qualified for the Euros. Also, they have a big focus on the Olympics next month as well. Hervé Renard is actually. He's not going to take the team for the Euros, so you'd imagine for him the Olympics is the big one. So hopefully that will benefit Ireland. Like, again, obviously people might be listening to this after the game. As Anne-Marie says, the big thing for Ireland is those playoffs, and like the big hope is that it's been tough going for the Irish team in this group. Like, everybody, like, from the moment the group was drawn, it was like, no, this is going to be hard. But you have to hope that the benefit of playing those games will stand, that they'll come through and get that seeding in the draw, and that the experience of playing those games will stand to the players. Like, I remember seeing Wales, when Ireland played Wales in, was it February, or when, the first friendly of the year, and it was out in Tala, and you were thinking, like, this should, we'd fancy ourselves against Wales. But Wales had played in League A last year, and they finished bottom of a group behind, I think, like Germany, Denmark. I think they might have got 1 point out of the 6 games or whatever. But I mean, that game, you could see Wales were a good, well-organised, solid, serious team that had really benefited from their experience in League A. And they beat Ireland that night, and they've subsequently gone on. They're top in their group now in the B tier. So hopefully the benefit of that last few months and few tough nights and a few tough experiences will be that'll raise the standards of the Irish team going into those massive games later in the year.
Anne-Marie, final question, I suppose. Having qualified for the World Cup and done so well to get there, I know you went through the permutations there. How high is confidence that we can actually qualify for the Euros?
I think it's still very high. I think, people who aren't maybe that into it may look at this and say Ireland have played 5 games, lost them all and scored 1 goal in a group. But as Tommy says, the benefit of playing those League A teams on a semi-regular basis, and there have been glimpses. I think Eileen and the girls would all admit that we're not at that level yet. It's the final big step to take, and we're just there. But when you look at some of the games, Sweden away from home was a fantastic performance put in. They needed a late goal to take the 3 points. Both second halves against England have been positive. Patches against France also. So we're nearly there. And as Tommy says, the benefit of playing these League A teams will hopefully stand to us in a playoff. And yeah, I think I'm backing us.
Okay, we'll finish.
Your flights booked
Get your
next
flights
year.
booked. We'll finish on that positive note. My thanks to Anne-Marie and to Tommy. That's it for VMTV Football Pod. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.